to Solstice Art Centre. Please take a moment to identify your nearest fire exit. In the event of an emergency evacuation, please remain calm and follow the instructions of our front of house staff. Please turn off all mobile phones and pagers. We would like to remind you that no flash photography or video equipment is allowed during the performance. No food or drink can be consumed in the auditorium. Tonight's performance does not include an interval. Thank you for your cooperation and enjoy the performance.
Is your phone off? Is your phone off? Yeah.
She might have come with me if I had asked her, if things had turned out different. And I know it's daft, but sometimes I ask her now in my head, in my dreams, the way that I know that I should have, if I'd had the courage. There were days before I left Spain when I thought that I saw her, was sure that I saw her, through the window of Mackin's or on that turn to our house on the road. But it'd be just a glimpse, a notion, not the full picture. It'd be just a hint of Josie in. The bend of her elbow, the tilt of her head, the swirl of her feet. I'd be sure though. Sure. In those days of endless waiting, after the rising, after the endless executions, that it was Josie. It had to be Josie. Before she'd vanished again on me, blown away on the wind. The mother used to throw stones at the wind on a gusty day for fear that it was fueled by fairies, travelling from place to place in the chance that they might steal one of us from the crib. Curious how that came to my mind just as the order, "Now!" lurched forward from inside the choking flames of the GPO. I was supposed to run, but my feet stuck fast to the concrete like they might have had it been a rain-drenched bog. "Run, Tom, for fuck's sake, run!" urged the boys at my side and heaved me out of my stupor. Heaved me out of that doorway. But into what? I could see no enemy. I could see nothing. No more than my mother and her fairies. My eyes were so swollen in my head by smoke and heat. Heat like I can hardly describe. Heat that threatened to melt the gun in my hand, the air in my lungs, the skin on my back. But instinct told me they were there. Soldiers. British soldiers. And instinct told me not to dinner once their bullets rained. There were 20 of us ran with the O'Rahillys I've heard since. 30 fed the GPO and one swoop like swallows. We led the retreat to Henry Street, to Moore Street. But sadly led no further. I'll never know how I wasn't killed or how I found that nook. The mind had stopped, the world had still, the sound of gun and roar and death. It was in my heart and in my knees as I danced like a man demented. danced over the cobbles, over the sparks of flying bullets, and over the corpses that fell before me, dancing the frenzied drum. Then over that wall to land where in quiet, a quiet yard, an open door, I scurried on. A rat now, no more a dancer, no more a soldier. Was I ever a soldier? No time to think. I just saved it all up. Saved it up in pictures. Saved it up for Josie.
Annie Hennessy, the school teacher from Kilbarry, came to the Healy house to give step dancing classes on a Sunday evening. She came over on her bicycle, a sinful way for any woman to travel according to the priest. But Annie Hennessy paid no heed. Me, Tom Farrell, and Mike Lowry were let go to the classes. Mrs. Healy had no children of her own, you see, and loved Mikey on account of his writing poems. Mrs. Healy was a grand woman, but no dancer. I'm telling you, I could barely look at her some Sundays for laughing at her leaping in general melee. She was too big, really, for the size of her little feet. And like the duck, you'd be afraid she might topple. She cracked ankles and lumped across the floor. Mikey and Tom would sometimes waddle in behind her, kicking out their feet, waggling their arses in mockery. I remember loving those evenings, and the splendour of it all. I'm telling you, Mrs. Healy's parlour was quite the sight to behold for Slane. She had the very best of everything, and quite the lady in the village. She was friends with all the gentry around, but still, she couldn't contain her screaming enthusiasm for all things Gaelic, and might have had 20 of us up on a Sunday, tapping and bounding about in circles till screech mode would go in his fiddle. I remember one night, Mr. Healy burst in a tizzy, warning that the very walls of the house would collapse if we didn't stop our clod hopping and incessant banging. God, it all seemed like such fun in the beginning.
I was sweating and heaving on the flagstone floor. What was it? A small kitchen. Dead now, no fire in the range, a troubled chair, they must have fled. My heart was bursting in my chest, so I tried to slow it. Slow it and breathe easy. I was alone. The bullets flew and slowed outside. Nervously, I laid my hands about me. Take it easy, Tom. Legs, belly, head, no holes. I hadn't a scratch. God help us, Annie Hennessy, but I put your jigs to good use that day. Afraid to stand for snipers, I dragged myself out into the hall up the quiet stairs. The commandants in the GPO had had us burrowing for days, so I thought if I could get into the attic, perhaps I could move on down the houses in the way home. Home? Jesus. Bedlam suddenly broke out again in the lane, a stream of gunshot. I knew it must be another wave of our lads retreating to the streets, running fast, running from the flaming, the shaking walls, the flaming roof, the blinding stench of carpet, the carcass and raging timber, running ducks now for the soldiers, the British soldiers, just picking them off from the barricades. How many were dead? Christ! Could there be anyone left at all? I picked my way through the litter of lives abandoned to those eaves. Not much to see. A chamber pot, abandoned trunk, discarded well-worn boots, some crates, a broken doll. Nothing to bar the way. Nothing like the stubborn granite that we clawed at in the GPO with hammer and pick and madmen dreaming. Dreaming of what? Escape. Well, what was there to escape to for desperate men? More hunger. More lockouts. Dead babies, consumptive wives, the degradation of the docks. These were men like I'd never seen before. Their stories like none I'd ever heard before. Men poorer than the poor of the fields, dirt poor, dogged poor, dangerous poor, nothing to lose. Pure. The pure men of the citizen army. Should I let myself myself down now onto the landing. Was it safe? I listened. Minute. By minute. Nothing. Should I wait? Should I sleep? I hadn't slept in days. 5 days. We lasted 5 days. A week. It was hard to tell now. The world was awful looking sure, not even time. Not even the sun. The revolving sun. I hadn't seen it for days. All I'd seen were faces. Their faces. Vivid faces, scorched, then drenched, smiling, screaming, orders barked, a whirl of skirts as women came with tea and bandages through the smoke, and some took up their guns and shot and killed and dug like the rest of us, telling any man that objected to read his precious proclamation. Equal rights and equal opportunities to all its citizens, that the whole people of Ireland is for men, women and children. Josie would have loved those women. Josie. I slept.
Not to be outdone by the Gaelic leaguers in Old Castle, Mrs. Healy started her own drama group here in the village hall. Oh, it's great crack all together. A mess of paint and flags and screaming in every street with the gob on them, carried in to drag a pick or beat a drum. Our first play was Kathleen Ní Houlihan, with yours truly playing the forlorn Delia Cattle. It starts with Peter. I play Peter for you. I play them all so as you get an idea. Right so, Peter. The ships are in the bay! The French have landed at Killala! Michael! Michael! Why do you look at me like a stranger? The boys are all running down the hillside to join the French! Michael won't be going to join the French! Tell him not to go, Peter! Oh, sure, it's no use. He doesn't hear a word I'm saying. Try and coax him over to the fire, Delia. Michael, you won't join the army. You won't leave me. And we going to be married.
They shall be speaking forever. The people shall hear them forever.
Wasn't much from now part, Delia. Wasn't much from now play, if I'm being honest. In fact, that's the best bit I just did for you there. Which everyone in the hall cheered, and you couldn't get a seat, and Mrs. Healy said that I was natural. Mikey was mad on Yates. But I'd have liked a bit more to say. And I don't know why it's always the lads that get to go off and fight. I think they just write all the best parts for themselves. Anyway, we moved to our new cottage at December that same year, 1913. And it was a grand house altogether with an acre and just across the road from Mike Lowry's. And we got it just after Daddy died, and thank God for that, because there was room now for Grandad to help me keep an eye on the little ones with many off to work in Healy's farm, and not one of us had to be put into the industrial school. Because I gave up my own studies, took up a job in Mackin's. Between that and Mammy's shillings, we could make do. Maguna was raised saying. He said he'd design me for teaching and complained that all his best scholars left to be maids or miners or shop girls. But I loved it. I did. I loved it. I did. I loved it. I did. I loved it. I loved it. I did. I loved it. All those smells of bread or ham or roasted coffee beans and the material in the drapers. Silk. Real silk and it's soft wool and taffeta. All sorts I wouldn't know the name of. But I just loved to rub my hand across if Mrs. Mackin needed assistance at that end of the shop. And it was a busy enterprise. Oh, fierce busy. And Mr. Mackin was delighted with me because he said I caught on to everything real quick. The best part about it was where it was situated. Bang slap in the middle of the village. So you'd see every stranger or neighbour that came up the street. And it was always easy to get a message to me or for the little ones to come in for a sweet after school. I'd see Mikey heading off every morning to the copper mines where he got work. And then Tom Farrell would nod through the window as he walked with his father towards the fields with the cattle. I'd see Father Clavin heave up the hill on his bicycle, growing off for the afternoon tea and poetry session at Mrs. Healy's, growing fat as a fool. He was on the cake in Gaelic. Or Lord Dunsany, or Hedford, in a splendid motor car. Or those recruitment officers when they started. Scourge on the county they were. Knocking on doors and tormenting all the young fellas to go off and join the army. The British Army. To go off and fight in a war.
It was early one morning, the lambs they did play.
Whose war? Asked Annie Hennessy. And wasn't she right? Sure had nothing to do with Ireland. It was the English and the Germans and a host of others squabbling over empire. Empire, when we were lucky to have a roof over our heads. Why should we care about poor little Belgium, she'd say, when we don't have any freedom of our own? She was some woman, Annie Hennessy. She knew it all, and she could argue as well as any of them. Her and Mikey were always at it. She wouldn't agree with them, you see, that Home Rule would come in for Ireland after the English War. She said it was a trick, that Carson and the Ulster Volunteers would see us all in hell first. And sure, the English loved Carson, no matter what they promised. They'd only play us all for fools. They go at us after every meeting. Annie and Mikey, 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 but then they'd be as thick as thieves at the same time. So I was more than a little uneasy, I can tell you. Until Mikey finally kissed me. After that fashion done a more. I'd never felt anything like it. Sure, I thought I'd drowned in the sheer pleasure of it. The wet and soft, steamy pleasure of it. And I'd waited so long. So long since school! Since way back with him always walking me home or walking me here or walking me there and never anything else. I thought I'd go crazy because I knew Mike Lowry could have any girl he wanted. In Slane, or Drogheda even, or anywhere abouts. With those eyes, and his fine back, and his poems, and his constant blather. I was always stone-cracked about Mike Lowry.
I fell in love with Josie Dunn when I was 6 years old. Though I knew I'd never have her. Josie Dunn sat at the top of her class. She was a raging beauty and master of every task put before her. She could sing like an angel and calculated speed, and she knew as much about Finn McCool as old Maguna with his book and his chalk. I knew every hair in her head and every twist in her face as she laughed, cried, taunted or danced as we made our way to school. Herself and Mike Lowry were the real scholars, though. I was just a pretender, Mike's pal. I got into Mrs. Healy's house because Mike asked me. I got into the drama club because Mike needed lads to paint the scenes. I got into the volunteer army because Mike founded our own group of early bandits here in Slane. I got into all sorts without a thought, just to be close to Josie Dunn. Just to hear her pitch and plot with Mikey and the rest of them. The real thinkers. The real dreamers. The real rebels. I wouldn't hear a word she said sometimes. Locked in the roll of her small pink tongue, round lips, or flash of a smile, the words were just meaningless words. It was the tilt of her head alone that would leave me spinning. Josie Dunn had a mole, dark as earth just beneath her left ear. You wouldn't see it unless you knew her because she fought with her hair to conceal it, but I knew it. And I loved it. I'd watch her break free into the light sometimes when she threw her head back to laugh or sing, or when she turned quickly to see who was coming. And I imagine licking it, kissing it, stroking it, from the touch of her hair to the small of her back. That mole was mine. My door to Josie Dunn. Dark and abandoned. Only mine. In the village they began to say she was trouble. Too much cavorting with Annie Hennessy, and her granddad Pat was a known Fenian, fierce for the story and supporters of patriots, land agitators, cattle drivers and conspirators. Though his back was long broke with rheumatism, he could still talk politics, home rule and treason with a cast of characters like Brian O'Higgins. O'Higgins, a fanatical poet who used to sidle a Lent and Brendan Mead, knocking Irish into a dose of dunderheads like Mead put before him by the Gaelic League. We fell foul of his teaching once a week, but stuck it out because Mrs. Healy would serve lemonade to anyone who could say her name in Irish. I'm also Fjarl. Ferocious he was, so can you imagine my surprise when I came across him on the roof of the GPO, still roaring. A sight more dangerous now with a gun in his hand. My mother tried to warn me off Josie and the volunteers in the Gaelic League. It's only all bladder, she'd say. And sure, what use is it? Is it the same Irish they beat into you that was beaten out of us 20 years ago? Stay well away, Tom, and keep your eyes in New York. Your brother nearly has your passage saved. But I couldn't stay away.
I dreamt one night I shot John Redmond. Aimed my rifle high and took the head off the leader of Ireland's parliamentary party. So he was the one man who always seemed to stand in my way. Annie Hennessy had long given up on Redmond because she said he wouldn't allow women in the party. Mikey thought he was God Almighty. So did Mrs. Healy, Maguna and the rest of them. Grandad, of course, was a different story. He was an IRB man through and through. He said that the IRB were the boys with the brains, meals. Fit enough to keep the house and home together, to feed the lot of us, to teach us and keep us out of harm's way. Yet she had a say in nothing. My mother. No one asked her to vote for John Redmond or to throw him out. No one asked her what was right for Ireland, or Meath, or Slane, or her own front door. I saw my mother shed tears of useless grief for my father. Tears of worry for me and my brothers. Tears heavier than the clay from sheer exhaustion. And yet she was expected. We were expected to bow our heads, say nothing, ask for nothing, hope for nothing. Just bow. Just bow to the priests, to the lords, to the judges, to the Heaths and John Redmond and the farmers, and to live our lives bent double. Sure, we knew no other way. Until that day, Annie Hennessy brought me up to Dublin. And there I met the ladies of Amin Naharan and the Women's Suffrage League. God, what a day that was.
There was curious quiet about the house when I awoke. I peered down through the hatch. All was in darkness. I let myself down. There were 2 doors shut tight in my landing. I gripped my rifle and crept down the stairs, not wanting to bring danger. Jesus Christ, what lay before me? A twisted, crumpled mass of a woman, half her head blown off, and a thick pool of blood still rippling out of her and into another room. I heard a door click open in the landing and turned, my rifle cocked just in time to catch a pair of bloodshot eyes dripping out of the doorway. Don't shoot, you fool! You're bringing the Tommies in on top of us. And they already shot at the street of the beast. Get on the way, why don't you? Haven't you bastards caused enough trouble? With that, he shut the door. I wanted to leave, but stepping over a woman's skirts, didn't I skid in the slick of her blood and land on the arse on the floor? It was the mercy of God my gun didn't go off, because there beneath the small scrub table shivered a boy. We were face to face. His eyes were like saucers in his skull. That's me, Ma, he said. She wanted to go and find Dad, my brother, but she took a bullet through the window before she got to open the door. I sat there speechless. What had I done? What was all this for? Why were women turned into corpses, boys into orphans? Who the hell was shooting who? And what was our grand plan?
Some died by the Glenside.
My name is Tom Farrell and I have a rifle in my hand.
Some died amid a stranger.
But my head's not full of socialism or utopia or a Gaelic republic.
Unwise men have told us
I have no convictions. No excuse.
that their cause was a failure.
I'm only here because I love Josie Dunn.
But they stood by all Ireland
Because I long for Josie Dunn.
and never feared danger.
I sleepwalk in the history, guided by my cock. And now I sit here amidst the dead woman's pots and pans with gunshot roaring and the entire city in flames.
Glorio, Glorio to the bold-faced young men.
Roll a bomb. He held it out like it was the Eucharist. I've 2 left, he said. Only then did I see his nest. Sweet papers, hundreds of them. We emptied lemons on the Liffey, he said, with his pals and his brother the day the looting started. He lost a tooth on licorice and now his mother into the bargain. We found a bit of tablecloth in the table drawer and covered up her head. The house was divided into flats, he told me, but it was only himself and old Davis that I met in the stairs that were home. The rest were lost somewhere out there in the mayhem. I could barely make out his features for the fierce days snapping the volume. And you the look in his eyes. He'd be a citizen army boy if you were older. Hardship, hunger, they were no strangers. We shared biscuits and water from my knapsack and waited for what we didn't know.
All around my hat, I wear a tri-colored ribbon low. All around my hat, until death comes to me. And if anybody should ask me, why am I wearing it? So for my true love, I never more will see. They whisper that my love, old Ireland is calling. High over Dublin now where tricolour flies. In the streets of the city, the foeman is calling. And we birds are whistling, old Ireland arise.
First we had lunch on Grafton Street, in Bewley's Cafe. Amidst all the grand shops and tops and hats and bustle, there we met two of Annie's friends, actresses, who sometimes worked in a place called the Abbey, but also with Anina Heron as teachers and campaigners for women's votes and better housing and children's street school meals, democratisation, the Irish language and a women's workers' union. I'd never heard talk like this before. It was another world in just the beginning. Me and Annie took part in their anti-recruitment walking. We started off at the rotunda and walked the length of Sackville Street in pairs, handing out leaflets to the soldiers' sweethearts. The leaflets were written as a reminder of their Irish patriotic duty, to have nothing to do with the British Army. We had to hide them in our muffs and distribute them quickly so as to get away before the soldiers saw their content. Helena, Annie's friend, warned me to be quick because soldiers might take off their belts and try to beat us off the street. But what actually happened is that the policeman saw us and we had to take to our heels down Henry Street, Moore Street and away. The policeman couldn't catch us because of his heavy overcoat, and I was thrilled and scared and astonished all at the same time. These women talked about Ireland. Ireland. Like it was a country all of its own. And women's votes. And women's jobs. And women's rights. And it just made sense. It all just made sense that Ireland could be different. And Ireland could be decent. And Ireland could be a place where everyone had a job and a meal and a home. We took the train back, thinking with excitement, and told Tom Barrowall because Tom collected us in his carton. Tom laughed at our adventure and Tom said that we were two great women. Tom Farrell never told you to go easy or to be careful or to be quiet. So I suppose Tom never thought so much of himself as to be telling other people how to live their lives. Tom never got rattled or restless like the rest of us.
It was dark again when the boom of the great gun to the north grew still. Potshots still sounding on the pavement. Boots on the march. A motor turning.
Our favourite place to go walking was along the ramparts, down over the Boyne. Me and Mikey, we'd lie in a long nest of grass and just look up at the sky, up at the birds, with their free flight, their swoops and their falls. Mikey knew the name of every bird and every tree and every plant in Meath, and he loved them all as he tea. She was Redmond over Ireland, and Redmond over me.
Some Midlands moaned into collapse, yet it seemed quieter.
Mikey told me he was joining up, he screamed.
Dublin was quieter than before.
And I'm sure they heard me all the way up in Dublin,
How did Mikey?
along the road and through the ditches.
Where was he?
I'd write letter after letter to
Yeah,
Mikey in France. Tom
Belgium.
would post him down the village.
What on earth would he make of all this?
Laura
fight.
left me breathless.
The week.
I was always stone cracked.
The real rebel Mike Lowry joined the Royal Army.
Mike Lowry left me
Independence would
breathless.
never be won in England's war.
I was always stone cracked.
He was sold a pup, fed alive, and now he'll die on the wrong side.
Mike Lowry left me breathless. Mikey told me he was joining up, I screamed. And I'm sure they heard me all the way up in Dublin, along the road, through the ditches, because I knew. I knew as soon as he said it, it was the end.
The first night I told my young friend I thought it was time to go. Good luck to you, bog man, came a whisper from under the table.
Mikey left his house on a bright Tuesday morning. We stood at our gate across the road with Maggie and Grandad. A stillness strange crept into my heart. Still, we wished him well. Don't worry, Josie. I'll be home soon. I love you.
I found the milk cart overturned in the lane with the dead man under it, so I tossed my rifle without a thought and donned his cap and turned the cart towards Phipsborough. Within a half hour I was clear of the city. The ravaged, bleeding city, gap-toothed, smouldering and furious. The remnants of our green quilts still fluttered over the carnage. The shawly women in every ragtag in the tenements now took back their streets. They hurled abuse and kicks and sticks at the bewildered survivors of the rising sons of Erin. They were ridiculed now, lambasted for upsetting king and country, for spitting in the face of the sacrifice of husbands, brothers, fathers, up to their neck in the muck and killing the Flanders. I saw them mashed away like ghosts. My comrades, scorched now, limpid now, exhausted now, heads down, estranged, tormented, scorned by the very people they fought to free.
I stood in the shop placing small green cards in every product we had that was Irish. It was a notion I got from the Dublin girls to promote Irish goods for Irish jobs. But Mr. Mackin was having none of it as he stood there glaring, urging me not to draw attention to myself. I could feel the coughs rattle up through me and my head was swimming and my chest was sore and Mr. Mackin looked alarmed, but Grandad said that the Duns were a hardy breed. And I was happy to believe him. Spoke in bed and I'd be as right as rain and back behind the counter in no time. It wasn't consumption, he was sure. There had never been consumption in our family. Still, everyone stayed away. Everyone, that is, except for Tom Farrell. Or on the odd day, Annie Hennessy. Tom would call every evening with news or sweets or flowers he pulled out from the hedges. And Tom would just sit right at the edge of my bed without a care. So I'd asked him if he'd heard anything from Mike. I'd asked him if he'd heard anything from any of the lads that went over. I'd write letter after letter to Mikey in France. And Tom would post one down in the village for me. I was so afraid that Mike might be dead. That I might never have him again. Feel him again. Smell that gorgeous smell of man. Musk. Rain. God. He was a fool to go, wasn't he, Tom?
to stop as soon as I saw them. The rebels. I wanted to take my place in their line to feed once more in youth and courage and dreams. I wanted to run from my own confusion, from the emptiness of my killing. Because I never had their vision. Or Mikey's. Or Josie's.
That plastic coffin now seemed to shake the very walls. And there was blood in it. Scars on my sheets. Scars on my skin.
For a soldier he leads a very fine life. And he always is blessed with a charming young wife. He pays all his debts without sorrow or strife. And he always is pleasant and charming. And a soldier, he always is decent and clean. In the finest of clothing he's constantly seen. I love poor fellows who dirty and mean, and sup on thing grueling on the morning.
I was born to the fields of need. I learned to walk while planting seeds. Bred for emigration, I am pliable, expendable, not worthy of the plough on my back. Or could I make a man out of the digging through Henry Street? Can I make a man out of the dragon of explosives hither and thither, avoiding sparks and flames that might blow us all to Jesus? Can I make a man out of the singing and shooting and the catching of a comrade as he falls to the shock of a bullet? Can I learn from them at all? From Margaret Skinner, who said she'd as much right to plant the bomb as any man was willing to die while trying. From Josie Dunn, who still believes in a better world for all and sundry despite the creep and choke and death that steals up through her. Can I ever be worthy?
Annie was busy with preparations, but for what she wouldn't say. She spent half the week in Dublin making food hampers and bandages and first aid kits. And she was always out in meetings or manoeuvres or talks. I wish to God that I was there. Because it's coming. I hear her whisper to Grandad. It's coming. And our boys are ready. Then I hear Mr. Mackin call with the basket of ham and breads and all sorts and a book of poems by Catherine Tynan. And he's a kind man, Mr. Mackin. And it was hard for him to say what he had to say, but he couldn't have people thinking that there was sickness in the shop. And he couldn't have me handling all his eggs and apples and carrots. And I was a fine girl, said Mr. Mackin. And he'd no doubt that I'd recover, but sure, he had to think of the business, and wasn't it shocking the way the war was dragging on? I could barely drag myself now from the window, from the bed to the window. The effort seemed to steal the air from me. It was so nice once I got there. So nice to taste that cool breeze as it blew across the river. For to see the wild sky. Our sky. And to imagine Mikey walking under it. Or on a battlefield. Or in a trench. Because they say they live in trenches out there. In holes in the ground. They say that they shoot out into the air. Into the nothingness. The way a person here might sometimes throw a stone to the wind.
My mind swam as I walked the roads. Walked the roads home to Josie. And the roads knew nothing of the GPO or Boland's Mills or the South Dublin Union. The roads just twisted and turned in the same gentle, generous flow through grasses and wildflower and crop. And the roads were silent. No echo of marching feet or rosary beads or collapsing granite.
Annie burst in the door last Monday, her face crimson purple. "It's on, Josie, it's on," says I. "They've taken over Dublin. Padraig Pearson, the volunteers, it's all the talk at Fairy House, and they're trying to sober up the British soldiers to send them back out to fight, and there's thousands of our lads out, well, hundreds of them, in Sackville Street and Stephen's Green, and the women and all are out with them. So I'm going up with my bicycle to see if I can lend a hand." Mrs. Healy's donated hands. "Jesus, I put on the settle myself if you're able. I'm able, I cried. I'm able! I'm able!" Of course it was nonsense. There wasn't an ounce of strength left in me. I could barely make it to the front door, and there we met Tom Farrell. Fistful of bluebells. First one's out to be found. Annie flew off down the hill at a pace, hair and hands flying. So I begged Tom to take me up to Dublin, to take a stand to talk. A stand for Ireland and self-government and freedom. For your brothers and mother and mine. For dead fathers and workers and starving children and Mike. Because he never would have gone if he'd known. He never would have gone if he'd known. He never would have gone to the bloody war. Tom just caught me up in his arms, took me back to my bed. I begged. Tom. And then, of all things, he kissed me. He kissed me, full and forceful, right on the mouth. "All right, Josie. All right." He was away up to Dublin. For Ireland. And for me.
There was talk all right of a skirmish when I got as far as Ashburn. Police had been killed in a hold-up at Rackross, but nothing more. No one asked me who I was or where I was going. And no one seemed to mind the state of me clothes, the fright in me face, or the scorched mud in me hair. Their talk just turned to bullocks and calves and sheep. I think it's turned for generations. Jesus, I wondered, did it happen at all?
Right proudly high over Dublin town they hung out the flag of war. For it was better to die 'neath an Irish sky than at Suvla Sudelbad. And from the plains of royal Meath strong men came hurrying through, while Britannia's hunt with their long-range guns sailed in through the foggy dew.
If I listened hard, I could hear it. All the way from Dublin and down over the Boyne. The boom, boom, boom of England's big gun. The one that blew Dublin to smithereens. Grandad said that they sailed it in on the Liffey and now the whole city was burned.
Finally, I could see it. The Boyne,
I could see he was afraid now.
as it broke out free from the green and swung on into the valley,
Afraid that when it was over, all our lads would be home.
it seemed to welcome me home.
If I listened hard, I could hear them. On the road, through the
In
grasses.
Slane Castle, just as I left it.
Different men now. Tom Farrell. Mike Lowry.
Proud gates, strong and impregnable,
Walking home.
like a mockery to me now and all the dead of the week.
If I listened listened hard, I could hear
I
them.
looked down at Josie's cottage.
Paused at the top of the hill.
And I collected all the pictures, all the people in my mind. For I would tell her every thought, every minute, and every name. I yelled the first one out to the wind, Henry Coyle! I saw him drop from a bullet on Moore Street. Philip Clark, husband, father, worker, born in the village of Spain. Margaret Keogh, citizen, suffragette, coming along. I roared their names to the heavens. Edward Ellis, Gerald Keogh, Francis Mackin, and sang them back to the heron. Margaret Naylor, Louis Byrne, Patrick O'Connor. I fired them up in the castle walls. Richard Murphy, Sean Owens, Michael Malone. As I walked home to where it all had started, with dancing and hurleys and loving Josie Dunn, where it all blew in on the wind and the wild sky.
I listened hard. I could hear them crying. And Mammy. Hear her call the doctors. Hear her call the priest.
You're away, said my mother as I went back into the cottage. I could see her hold tight to the milk jug for fear that it might drop to the floor. I was. Well, then you'll not have heard, will you? You'll not have heard about Josie Dunn. I wonder if she might have come with me. If I had asked her. If things had turned out